Okay, today I'd like to introduce the very unique epitaxy technique that can really provide the you know unique solution to AR technological sector. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Epitaxy innovation for AR solutions. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And you are looking at the only 300 nanometer single crystalline gallium nitride out of the substrate here. This picture was taken 7 years ago. 7 years ago, but now we are peeling the wafer, not the pieces. But this looks beautiful, so I'm always using this these days. So yeah, so to give a background, I don't have to repeat this many times, but to make a long story short, Apple is making Vision Pro. My son is 5 years old, and Dad, please buy me Apple Vision Pro. Do you know how much it is? I'm not that rich, son. Then he said, "Oh, what about iPod? Yeah, I can buy an iPod." So, it's expensive, but mostly, OLED is the key enabler for this VR display, and it has to be there, and it's I don't think VR is going to disappear even if we succeed to make very lightweight AR system. So OLED technology has to be there. OLED has to be there to make it better and better. And we have a great team at MIT to address this issue. My group is more into this sector because, as you can see from this chart, for AR, we really have to fight against the sun. If you wear it, you really need to see the display outside. Then maybe OLED may not be the solution to do so. Then it has to be something else. But among these three solutions, LCOS, liquid crystal, and laser beam scanning, and micro LEDs, these three solutions with high brightness, we may have to go to the micro LED direction because compared to these two, micro LED is better, simply better. But at the moment, it's supposed to have the very high efficiency power, consumption, but it's at the moment pretty high with the various reasons that I'm going to talk about. So anyways, to fight against the sun, we need to work with the high brightness solution. At the same time, AR glass is a fashion item. It has to be super small. At the moment, this is Meta Orion. I may wear this I may not wear this in front of the audiences here. I want to look good. So it's pretty big at the moment, but it's going to get smaller. But it's really, really impressive at the moment. Really, really impressive. It's really looking like the glass, and it has all the functions, which is very impressive, right? So engine has to be small, and the brightness has to be high. Obviously, high resolution is absolutely needed. So micro LED is kind of like a consensus. Micro LED is the solution to go, right? So then understanding those, we also understand the challenge out there, right? There are various challenges out there. First challenge is assembly. How to arrange this RGB color in this light engine. That's the current challenges. So correct me if I'm wrong, this is sort of a configuration of the RGB arrangement in the light engine for the Meta Orion, I think. So three different TVs, small TVs there. Then it go through the waveguide, right? This is light source. So RGB is separate, and it's a bit large volume, and the FOB is supposed to be small because you have to have this RGB in the box, and the price, you have to have three small TVs in your glass, right? So we all know that in the future, better assembly is needed. Then one of the very strong solution is to stack the RGB in one place, so then you can have only single one light source here. That way you can have the smaller volume, larger FOB, and hopefully lower price. But is there any solution? So right now, there's no product yet, but we know that in the various sources, the Chinese company called Jaybird, is working on that, full color micro LED stacked, vertically stacked. As you can see here, RGB stacked. As you can see also here, aspect ratio is already pretty high. So you need to have a laterally smaller dimension for high PPI, but aspect ratio is pretty high. It's quite thick. All right. So to make it thinner and to make the innovation happens, we understand, we know that we need very, very thin RGB, right? So at the moment, again, the challenge is associated with the thick membrane that we are preparing right now. When you grow LED structures on the wafer, typically gallium nitride, indium gallium nitride, by using epitaxy, then typically it's pretty thick, because we are either growing gallium nitride LEDs on silicon or gallium nitride LEDs on sapphire. Then there are huge lattice mismatch between those. You will need to grow the quite pretty thick buffer layer in between. After you grow this kind of thick buffer layer, typically it's like a 2 microns. Whole LED stack is 2 micron. Then you have to release it by using, laser lift-off, which is not very efficient, known to be not very efficient, or you have to completely grind the wafer to isolate these LEDs. Then now you're ready to stack them up, but it's already pretty thick. By putting any, bonding layer on optics in between, it can be easily go beyond 10 micron. It's going to be apartment. It's going to be high rise, and you shrink it down, right? So we really need to find a solution to make the ultra thin LED membranes, inorganic LED membranes. Okay, so then you may say, after releasing this LED, why don't you do the dry etching to make it thinner? Yeah, that's possible, but in order to have a precise optics there, this uneven surface is unacceptable. By doing dry etching, you cannot have precise stop at the certain interface, so your thickness of the layer is not uniform. So that is the problematic. That is problematic. So far I gave you two different challenges. Another big challenge is optical loss and failure. You may know this if you work on this sector, this AR display. Because of the wide spectrum coming out of your light engine, you have eye glow. At the same time, your light is non-polarized, random polarized light. This creates the ghost image, and your beam from the single LED is diverging. Especially in micro LEDs, it's pretty small. Then light coming from the side of the light, pixel as well. So you have substantial loss of the light going into the waveguide. So substantial loss. These three are all originated from the optical loss. There's a very significant loss that we cannot bear with in the future. So we really need to find a solution for this. At the same time, red is problematic. Red micro LED is problematic. So typically, green and blue could be made out of gallium nitride, 3 nitride materials, but the 3,5 is needed to do the red at the moment. If you scale it down to less than 10 micron, this EQ drop is substantial. So you really need to find a solution to address this. So these are the outstanding challenges out there. If you know how to address this, then you can really revolutionize this AR in the future. So this, we believe, I don't know if it's exaggeration, but we believe this is the only way to go. Okay, so we believe if you know how to make the high EQ, high efficiency micro LED that is very, very ultra thin form, freestanding form, then it's going to be the solution. So now MIT, my lab, has been developing the way to make this micro LED ultra thin. You're looking at the perfect single crystalline gallium nitride coated on the human skin replica. It's that thin, 200 nanometer perfect single crystalline gallium nitride on the human skin replica. It's super thin. So this is enabled by the technique called the remote epitaxy. I don't have time to go over the whole physics around this, but we know how to grow perfect single crystalline LEDs on graphene on the wafer. Then, if you grow perfect single crystalline LED layers, you can simply peel them up. but that thickness is less than 500 nanometer. Okay, so far there's no viable technique to peel off ultra thin gallium nitride layer out of the substrate with that thin. We have very, very thin layer and angstrom resolution. We can peel them off, as you can see here. With that, what can we do? Obviously, we have ultra thin RGB LEDs out of the wafer. Then we peel off RGB separately. Then we do the monolithic 3D integration of RGB. Then there's no alignment issue. And our RGB is ultra thin. So as you can see, compared to the one that you saw from the JBD, our aspect ratio is low. And they're all perfect single crystal. Then we stack the highest pixel density micro LEDs here, 5,000 ppi. They're all colors well mixed. Thanks to the technique is called remote epitaxy, we can peel them up as very, very thin form. We can stack them up. Not only that, we can apply resonant cavity concept into ultra thin perfect single crystalline LED layers, which cannot be imagined before because all the LED layers out of the substrate is very thick. We cannot imagine to apply this, resonant cavity concept, but with this ultra thin micro LEDs, you can do that. Simply, you peel off the LED layers out of the substrate, then we can do the DBR top and bottom sandwich DBR after peeling them off. Then what you can imagine is narrow beam, and wavelength is narrow, and all the beam can be collimated. Okay, so this can happen. Then resonant light emission is possible by utilizing remote epitaxy LEDs. Okay, again, conventional technique cannot do this because you have to grind or etch the membranes. Then it's irregular. Then you cannot use precise optics there. But we do here is DBR top and bottom. Then you can do the sharp spectrum, aligned polarization, and sharp divergence angle. So then we can solve the substantial challenges in this field, optics issues. At the same time, remote epitaxy will be able to relax the epitaxial strain immediately, not like the conventional epitaxy. In conventional epitaxy, we all know that it's very, very hard to make red LEDs out of the gallium nitride materials because you need to have a lot of indium into indium gallium nitride, but it's very challenging because of two different reasons. If you have high indium contents, then there will be phase separation. So you cannot add indium to reduce the band gap that matches the red. At the same time, if you add indium, lattice mismatch increases, then dislocation is formed. It's super defective. Here at MIT, we understand that if there's a graphene in between when you do the epitaxy, then you can have spontaneous relaxation, meaning that epitaxial strain can be relaxed immediately. So then you can add a lot of indiums in it. So we are looking at the 100% relaxed 30% indium into our single crystal indium gallium nitride and graphene. So then you can do the red. Currently, the crystalline quality is not very good, but we are working on this. We have a very unique solution. Also, by working with Professor Munji Bawendi, we try to add his red quantum dot on the bottom of our LED stacks, on the bottom, not in the middle, on the bottom, because typically you need a pretty thick red quantum dots to re-emit the light. Right? So if it's thick and if it goes in the middle, then it's already very tall. But we are working together to find a way to put it down here and ultra thin, so then you can also still use blue InGaN LEDs as a light source. Then we can do the quantum dot. That is a part of the topic that we are working together. So this is one good example. Working with our colleagues at MIT. If there's any needs, then we can meet together. We find a solution in a week. So that's, yeah. So this is a conclusion. So vertical assembly of micro LED is needed. JBD stack is pretty thick. So, also more importantly, resonant cavity concept, which is very valuable, but it cannot be utilized in these thick layers. But remote epitaxy produce ultra thin, high quality micro LEDs. So then it can be easily assembled. It can be a high quality DBR, RC concept can be applied. So then you can have the narrow spectrum, narrow divergence, aligned polarization, so that all this problematic issue can be gone. No eye glow, no Gaussian image, no light loss. Light loss is pretty importantly related to power consumption. Power consumption. If you lose all the light coming out of your LED, that is the power, right? So you can save a lot of power. And we can do the pretty high efficiency red. So that's the conclusion. Thank you so much for your attention, and happy to answer your questions. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So just out of curiosity, certainly working with, these thin films, you want to ultimately move it to a more solid, rigid substrate. You can't work with something flexible. You ultimately maybe want to move it to like a glass backplane or something like that. Is that kind of?
Yeah, there are many options. There are many options.
Sure.
So in the lab, MIT, we peel off a pretty thick, polymer, handler. As you can see, tape, but this is pretty thick. So we peel and stack on the, backplane circuit. Also, at the same time, you can also do the wafer bonding before the peeling. We do the bonding, then we pop, we just pop the wafer out, and then we have a remaining ultra thin membranes. Many different options possible, and we do have the now spin-off future display business recently spun off to enable this, resonant cavity concept micro LEDs as a light engine. So, yeah.
And is this growth through MBE or MOCVD or both?
Absolutely has to be MOCVD, right? MBE cannot do the job, so MOCVD will be utilized. Then we do this with much more professionally. So in the lab, we do just tape and seizures and do this, but it can be done in professional way in the future. Yep. Daniel. Oh yeah, thickness of field stack. Thinnest we can do is 200 nanometer, and we are working on the 1 micron LED, full LED stack, including quantum well. So that's our target right now. So, which is one challenge is, can you finish all the epi stack in 1 micron without sacrificing EQE? So that's the kind of like a topic that we are working on right now. Yeah. Yeah. Hello.
Very nice talk. Could you comment on the reliability of this multi-stack type of assembly? I imagine there's no strain. There's also a sort of lower degree of interaction between the layers, right?
Right. So reliability is really bad because we are working in the lab, seizures and tape, but it's going to be better. So reliability-wise, we have to address it. Yeah, we have to address it, but it's pretty reliable, because you put the polymer interlayer to make a good bonding, and we can avoid any complicated dry bonding process in that we have to do in the future, right? So dry bonding is always needed to do the professional bonding, but we just use some trick in the lab to make it more robust. But that's the kind of topic that we have to address in the future. Yeah, the great question. Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, we move on to the next speaker. Thank you.